Alright guys, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to the showdown between Kislev and Khorne here on the Celestial Lake. It's going to be myself with Boris Ursus facing off against Maverick Sloth, who's going to be rocking Valkyrie the Bloody, and should be quite the knockdown drag-out fight. I do have a big scary monster, backed up by some foul witchcraft. The Hag, of course, going to be using Flock of Doom, which I think is a pretty cost-effective spell against Khorne. They do have those new spell resistances up to 35%, so a lot of magic is tough against them, but as far as my build goes, it is going to be using Horse Archers, which are great. Horse Archers just run up and grab objectives on domination mode. That's a lot of value, right? If you're faster than your opponent, you can get up and grab the objectives. Sometimes games can come down to a couple points, right? So getting that slight edge in the beginning is very nice. And on top of that, they're going to be able to kind of poke against Marauder Horsemen and just give you utility around the battlefield. The big core of the army, though, is going to be very elite. We do have the Kislevite Warriors backed up by Foot Boris Ursus, which has been something I've been experimenting with quite a bit. This is a tournament game, so this was, I think, in the second or third round of a tournament. And Boris Ursus on foot, I like him in this matchup because he does magic damage. He also has Frostbite and Anti-Large. And Valkia isn't really going to do much against him. He's going to be able to kind of hold his own against Valkia, whereas a lot of the other Kislev Lords are very huntable for Valkia, like any of the Chariot characters or an Ice Witch on a horse, for example. But old Boris is going to be sitting there in the pits fighting and doing magic damage to Minotaurs and magic damage, anti-large against Minotaurs and magic damage against like Fleshhounds and various other demons. As far as the abilities, we do have Colossal Strike, which is really cool. It gives him a huge damage bump. We do have the Fury of Ursus, which is going to be rampaging him and making him cause terror, which is somewhat relevant against some of the cheaper Marauders, I suppose, as well as the Shard Blade, which is an AoE damage ability, which is really good for crowd clearing. So he's going to be backed up by a Patriarch with healing ability, and the Incarnate Elemental Beast is pretty solid against Khorne. It's a magic damage anti-infantry fighter with a Mortis engine. What's not to love? Caster, like I said, is going to be a Hag Witch with Flock of Doom. So for my opponent's army, Maverick Sloth, he is going to be rocking the Marauder Horsemen of Khorne, a very, very good call. You need some range poke, and these things, they can do some solid damage both at range and in melee. For example, if they need to chase some of my units off the battlefield or rear charge something, they have 44 weapon strength and a good charge bonus, good weapon strength. I'm a big enjoyer of the Marauder Horsemen of Khorne, so he's got two of those, and the rest of his army is going to be pretty meaty. He does have Chaos Warriors backed up by Halberds, as well as Minotaurs with Grey Opens back here. One of the old metas for Kislev, of course, was sled spam, but in this tournament, one of my goals was to try not to use sleds. I wanted to experiment with other styles. In sleds, I believe the Kislev sleds did just get a pretty heavy nerf in this patch, so that was also one of the reasons I wanted to try other stuff here. Valkyrie the Bloody up in the sky with Sleipnir, and that's going to be it. So a very heavy metal Khorne army, just all elite infantry. I'm so used to seeing Marauders into the sunset, but here we see Chaos Warriors, which, you gotta love. Good stuff here by Maverick Sloth. So objectives are open. Objective 3 is going to be mine, and call-ins for myself, I think we're going to be saving up for something a little bit fancy here. Skull Cannon is out for Khorne. We do see it spawning and immediately ripping a shot. Skull Cannon's one of the big winners of this patch. They're quite good now. I mean, still, of course, in some matchups they're not great, but against Kislev, I think it's solid. Anti-infantry, armor-piercing melee. At range, they're going to be able to shoot against my cav and my, somewhat elite infantry. I do like that. I think that's a nice option here. So my horsemen just going to be poking into the Chaos Warrior Halberds here, trying to do a little bit of superficial damage. Nothing too crazy, as the Kislevite Warriors stand ready to meet the Foul Warriors of Khorne. This is the cinematic battle here. And you do see Boris Ursus. He might as well be marching back and forth, give it a speech. That'd be cool. He's a really, really awesome character. And I think Foot Boris is actually quite good. Foot Rasputin is also a nice choice. I think they're both viable here. So we do move in. The Flock of Doom is immediately going to be draining these guys, and the Atomic Pimp Slap coming in from the Incarnate Elemental does some damage, but at the end of the day, I do take the L there because he is able to get his Marauder Horseman and just blast me in the face and do like 30% HP damage right out of the gates. So that was a very nice play by Maverick Sloth. So feels bad for me, good for my opponent. Now on the ground here, Kislevite Warriors and Boris have now engaged. Patriarch is there too, and Boris, even though he's anti-large, is still a really good AP fighter. So in sustained grind against like Chaos Warriors, for example, he's going to be able to bash him down. So in response to the Marauder Horsemen, we do call out some Horse Archers, and the Horse Archers are going to be shooting them and just putting some, keeping him on his firepower on them. Flock of Doom also going down from the Hag. And there's going to be a Sleipnir. So Sleipnir activated on my Kislevite Warriors there, goes through both formations. A really, really good cast. So far, my opponent playing a really good game as he does pull a nice value lead over me here. Valkyrie the Bloody going to be hunting down my Hag Witch, which I do see coming, so I pull back. And she drops a summon of Things in the Woods. It's very cool that she's able to do that. The Hag Witch is able to summon Things in the Woods, which is really nice at helping me kind of turn the tide of the fight. Minotaurs do charge in. Anti-large should be able to kill my summons very quickly, and the Elemental Incarnate is going to be juking away from old Valkyrie here, just trying to keep it alive. keeping the energy going. So a little back pressure from Khorne as well. We do see the Chaos Warriors and the Khorne Warriors with halberds making a play for objective 1. And I did call in the Zargard with Great Opens a minute ago. A little bit risky, but I like to bring 1 in this matchup. Just in case your opponent isn't using Bloodletters, then it's really nice to call it the Zargard, because they're pretty tough for Khorne to kill without Bloodletters. I mean, the throwing axes and Minotaurs can do it, but they can definitely grind down the infantry. So they're going to be chasing down these halberds here. Meanwhile, Warriors and Kislev Warriors fighting it out. On the objective, it's looking pretty good. We do have a bit of a pit fight here. I use my dervishes to buy time for my Incarnate Elemental to get away. And Boris Ursus going to be coming across with his mighty halberd to duel Valkia. Oh, that actually kind of looked like she dodged it because she jumped to attack. That was pretty rad. It's cool when it lines up like that. But the Kislev Warriors forming, and this is what I wanted. I wanted a big pit fight. So the Incarnate Elemental is going to be turning back in. Thankfully, the Kislev Warriors do have the Tors battle him as well as Salak's Lullaby. 69 melee attack on the Halberd Warriors. Very, very good. But I do start to fold up in this position, but I think it's going to go well for me with the Flock of Doom, right? So we drop a fat Flock of Doom there. My great weapons here, the Kislev Warriors, have sandwiched these Chaos Warriors of Khorne and are going to be cutting them into pieces pretty damn well. So they are going to be getting their bread buttered. In the meantime, the Horse Archers are just kiting around the battlefield, trying to skirmish with his Marauder Horsemen to keep them from causing a lot of havoc. And I do commit the Incarnate Elemental back into the pit fight. Boris Ursus with Colossal Strike, great stat line, and his anti-large not really relevant here, unfortunately. For the Patriarch and the Big Beastie, we do have the Mortis engine coming down from the Incarnate Elemental. It does have the Flock of Doom Mortis, and it probably has some decent value at this point. I always wonder with the Incarnate Elemental, like, it seems like it and the Elemental Bear fulfill similar niches. I suppose the Elemental Bear is tankier and also better against things that aren't infantry, whereas this thing is probably like objectively better against infantry. It's a little bit hard to say, but Valky the Bloody does disengage there, and we do manage to stabilize the objective. The Drain is doing a lot of work, as are our 2-foot combat characters, and here we did get a bit of a sniping attempt. Fleshhounds of Khorne did try and get on the Hag Witch in the tree line, but the Winged Lancers, the Mighty Cav, did emerge with their howling wings, and they do get an excellent charge onto the Hounds and do break them back. So that felt pretty good, and we do break open the objective. The Incarnate Elemental, Boris Ursus, as well as the Patriarch, who no longer has that non-stop healing. He only has the Lullaby now. You guys remember the days when Kislev had like non-stop healing on their Patriarchs? That was like the most foul shit ever. Brutal. Now to the back objective, we do stabilize pretty well. We are down in value, but remember, we have a lot of healing. We've used several of the Salak's Lullaby, so overall the game is probably pretty even at this point. Very similar in value, and the Zargard should be able to handle these Chaos Warriors, although they are very tattered, but they have the help of the Armored Cossars nearby, so maybe that will make the difference. Skull Cannon a little bit surrounded here, but this is actually a win for my opponent because it's probably out-healing the damage that the Horse Archers are doing in melee and also regaining ammo, so that's not great for me. But back to the pit fight once again. Minotaurs with great weapons do pile in, but this is where Boris is really solid, right? He's an anti-large fighter, so you mix Boris in here with the boys, and he's going to be able to, methodically kill these Minotaurs. Just like every couple attacks is going to be picking one off, and it's going to pay some big dividends. So Incarnate Elemental, didn't this thing used to have anti-large too? Yeah, I remember that. That was super busted. It was anti-large and then also had infantry covered with its freaking drain. Yeah, that was insane. Some of the stuff on launch was nuts. But another Flock of Doom going down. My Incarnate Elemental probably going to be crumbling down here. It is wavering, it is unstable, so that's going to be 1,000 HP going into the pits. But overall, I would say it did okay. It got about 1,000 value, and it was a big, big target for my opponent that he really dove into a lot of aggressive engagements to deal with. But we do get the Minotaurs in response. Here you can see the Shard Blade is activated. Going to be slowing these guys. Chaos Fury's coming in. But I do think we are going to be pulling out the dub on that particular fight. Over here, the Zargard with great weapons, not hearing any bell whatsoever, not quite getting their value back, pretty close. They're going to probably reach about 1,000 value before they go. And these Mighty Warriors, of course, do cost 1,100 if memory serves. So we'll see what gets done here. Chaos Warriors of Khorne. Going to be pushed off the objective, and the Kosovo Dervishes and company should be able to win the day there. Now, as far as the point goes, the durability of Boris. Yeah, Boris. Remember, Boris was from that was from that Seth MacFarlane show. Yeah, that was a fun one. But yeah, Boris Ursus, as well as the Patriarch here, are going to be able to win the pit fight. And you do see the forces of Khorne being pushed off the objective here. Khorne dogs maybe on their way back in. But at this point, we are starting to take over. The value is pretty much even, which is not good for Khorne, considering I do have a lot of healing. Like I said, I've been able to get, I think, 2 Salak's Lullabies on pretty cost-effective units, including Boris, and several on the Elemental Incarnate. So that's a big, big setback for my opponent. Kislev Warriors are going to be my call in for my opponent. What is he calling in? It looks like it's kind of desperation mode, just calling in a lot of Furies to try and win engagements, which isn't a bad idea. It's something that can, it's kind of like a quick investment, right? It gets there, it can get you some value immediately, but the better long-term investment sometimes is infantry. But at this point, he can't afford to make a long-term investment because it's the game is coming to an end, right? We're getting high in the points cost, so a lot of weird tactics in ye old Dom mode here. Kosovo dervishes and warriors holding it down on this objective. We do also call it a snow leopard. I never leave home without one snow leopard. I always like to have one. It's just a useful little anti-large tool. It's dirt cheap. And can turn a fight, right? Like if you have an armored Kossar, which isn't the halberd, of course, just the armored Kossar fighting a Minotaur unit, and you throw in a snow leopard, it's going to make that fight, potentially close to even. I mean, the Minotaurs, if they're the anti-infantry, would win that, of course, probably. But yeah, it's a really, really nice tool also for chasing skull cannons, other SEs, things like that. And Boris and company, absolute Giga Chad, big and thick. He's going to be drinking well tonight. He does hold down the objective with the boys. So they do hold objective 3 against the forces of evil. And now we're going to be making a play for the back objective. So we do move up here with the Kislevite warriors. Maverick Sloth does re-maintain the value lead here. And that damn skull cannon, it's so hot right now. Where's that thing? Yeah, it's down here in the middle. Let's see what kind of value it has. So the skull cannon's sitting at about 800 value, so still plenty to give. You can see it has full ammunition from just grinding in melee. That is pretty nuts that it was able to recoup that much. And on the way in are going to be the Marauders of Khorne with dual weapons, so they are on their way up to try and take the objective, and they might actually be able to. I barely have anything here, but my 3 characters, maybe all 3 of my heroes, and my Legendary Lord and 2 heroes might be able to get it done, especially if I have Flock of Doom. So my plan is going to be calling in another Incarnate Elemental. I know that infantry is going to be the problem here. My opponent needs infantry for capture weight to wrestle the points from me, so that's got to be the play, right? So we move up the halberds and some of the horse archers. Horse archers going to be sacrificed, going to battle for Ursus. He does get a nice surround of my snow leopard. Snow leopard unfortunately gets ripped up pretty hard by these Chaos Furies. It has 38 melee defense, but only 20 armor, and the high weapons rank and melee attack of the Chaos Furies of Khorne really going to be showing through there. So nice play from my opponent there, getting a pick. But will Boris and company be able to win this fight? Maybe so. We do pop the Fury of Ursus and Colossal Strike here. So once again, his stats are going to be very jacked. And you see the Hagwitch doing excellent work, 1500 value, but the big Elemental Incarnate has come back. It was a risky save, right? I did start to lose some momentum on the battlefield, but I also called in, and before that, I forgot to show you guys, Ice Guard Archers, which I actually really like in any of the Chaos matchups. Magic damage is useful. Unfortunately, they're going to get nailed by Sleipnir here, which is going to feel really, really bad. But I like the sword variant because they annihilate Furies. So if somebody sends Furies after your Ice Guard with swords, they just like crush them in a matter of seconds. And then against other threats, they can shoot them from downtown. But yeah, Ice Guard are cool. Like as far as like elite archers in that category goes with like Sisters of Avalorn and things like that, I think in a lot of the demonic matchups, Ice Guard can be viable because they counter Furies if you bring the right variant, and they put a really, really good utility fire down on things. So at this point, we start to stabilize it. These are just Marauders, right? And we've been charging them with the Chariot. The Hagwitch, you got to remember, is on an armor-piercing Chariot and does have the Flock of Doom as well as her missile attack, so she's been doing really good damage. And now the Ice Guard with their pretty solid range at 160, going to be ripping shots. They have really cool animations. They look so freaking awesome. I really, really want them to just launch Kislev and Tabletop. I hope they don't blue balls with that. But that's one of the armies I'm most excited for starting. I think my favorite factions aesthetically, I thought about it the other day, and I think that the Empire, Nurgle, Chaos Dwarves, Kislev are probably in the ballpark. I really like them, and Dwarves as well, aesthetically. I don't really like playing Dwarves too much in this game, but I do think that I used to love them in Warhammer 1, but nowadays they just seem kind of like, I don't know. I like a little bit more, action for my builds. Being able to kind of punch forward instead of being very reactionary. But Kislevite warriors do hang tight here on objective 1, and we are going to be advancing up with the Kossovite dervishes to make sure things don't get too crazy here. Now we do get the Chaos warriors with halberds arriving up on the point, but at this point it's going to be probably too late for him to come back. I can win on just one objective here, so I'm more than likely going to be able to sit on objective 1 and just cackle as the Incarnate Elemental does come in, starts to drain these bad boys down. Halberds, of course, will be very good against the beast, but he is going to be able to... Oh, look at that. He just karate kicked those guys. He's got some really cool animations. He's got like a Tony Stark chest flare right there. But the Flock of Doom Mortis does annihilate the Marauder Horseman. Boris Ursus is sitting at about 1,700 value, which is great. It's about how much he costs, I think, with the kit I brought, which is pretty kitted out, because I wanted to bring all of his items that make him really strong when he's weak. So when he goes below 50%, he gets a huge stat buff. Look at his stats, 62, 69, 700 right now. So he gets, the armor gives him a huge stat buff when he's low, and then also the heroic resilience. So he becomes like an unholy linebacker when he gets low, which is very, very fun. As far as the objective goes, though, looking pretty much over. On the backside, our Ice Guard, once again, another Fury unit was sent to attack the Ice Guard, and they just crushed him. So we are kind of getting to see them in action. A little bit of value. Considering they got hit by a Sleipnir and attacked by Valky, I think that's very, very good. That damn Skull Cannon has been an absolute menace this game. It has paid for itself at about 1,200 value. Chaos Warriors or Marauders arriving up on the battlefield. Here we use the Costified Dervishes to run these guys down, but this game is basically 1,000,000% over. Boris Ursus is going to be able to handle these halberds most likely, and the back objective is very, very secure, and that is going to be it. So GG, well played. Very fun match. It was back and forth, you know. I felt like we both had moments where we kind of pulled ahead there. The Elemental Incarnate was good. I did summon it twice, but it didn't quite pay for itself. I wonder if the bear is just better, right? With the breath attack in tandem with like way more armor as well as like 2,000 more HP, maybe the bear is the way. But there's a couple playstyles you can do against Khorne. You could do Gunline. This map you cannot play Gunline, but that Kislev is very dynamic. You could play like a Streltsy Gunline. You could also do like Sled Spam if you want to do that. You could do Monster Mash. They can play a lot of different styles, which is one of the reasons why I still think, despite Kislev's nerfs, I don't think they're going to be like number 1 or 2 strongest faction. Maybe 2, but I think there are factions. I think Demons of Chaos are stronger than Kislev right now. Yeah, we'll have to see. The nerfs were pretty good. They got a handful of solid nerfs to their sleds, to the Kislevite Warriors, and a couple other things that were very meaningful. So overall, I'm pretty happy with it. So well played to Maverick Sloth. By the way, he's a YouTuber as well. He uploads Domination Battle Reports. So I know there's not a lot of people who do Dominate. I mean, there's not a lot of like Total War battle replays in general. There's you can count the number of channels on one hand basically, but Maverick Sloth does do domination action on his channel. He live streams his tournaments as well as recordings, so make sure to check him out. There will be a link to him in the description below. But that's it for tonight. You guys take care of yourselves. Well played to my opponent, and that is it for tonight.